All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the District 4 community meeting. Thanks for all coming out. I know that a lot of people couldn't make it because they're sick and the like, and there's also a couple other events in the city that are taking place at the same time. But thank you all for trekking out. I wanted to introduce, before we introduce our main speaker, Councilmember Scott Barrett from District 5. He also represents North Redondo and is key to helping get the attention that we need here up in North Redondo. Very active city council member, and also he's an attorney by trade and an attorney in practice, and he's always watching out for, has the city attorney reviewed this yet? Because our city attorney is super busy. Great city attorney, just pulled in a million directions. We've got a lot of civil stuff to handle and a lot of prosecutorial kind of misconduct, misdemeanors, and homeless stuff to handle. So Scott's on the ball, making sure that the city attorney is conducting a review before city council takes it over. And this is our treasurer, city treasurer, Eugene Solomon. Before he was he became treasurer, he was on the budget and finance committee and helped the city save tons of money, $100 million, with the CalPERS bonding, recommending that we engage in the CalPERS liability bonding. So refinancing, yeah. So anything you guys want to say?
No, just happy to be here and seeing some familiar faces and new faces. Looking forward to watching as much as I can before I need to leave. So.
All right, cool. And next we'll turn it over to City Manager Mike Wazanski. This is our great city manager. In our form of government, local government here in Redondo Beach, the city council has one employee. This is the only employee that we're allowed to tell to do something. I can't go to any other employee and say, hey, I need you to do X, Y, or Z for my district. Unless, the exception is, unless a resident has requested it. So that's why when you make an email request to me, especially, or text message, I'm able to shoot that over and say, hey guys, can you help out with this issue this resident's experiencing? So we have had some flooding on Grant Avenue due to the new bulb outs and an inability to sweep all the leaves and the like, and so we're monitoring that and going to try to make sure that we get that cleared before the next rains. But without much more ado, Mike Wazanski is our city manager. He's been our city manager for about 2 years now. He became the city manager after I was elected, and he's been with the city for about 22 years, I think. 18 years, got it. And he served in numerous capacities as Director of Public Works and Director of Community Services, right? Then was Assistant City Manager before he was promoted to City Manager. And as I'll tell you, he's been super busy since he became City Manager. I wish we could duplicate him. Our closest to getting a second mic is getting our Assistant City Manager 2s, which there are 2 Assistant City Managers, whereas he used to be one assistant city manager. He's got 2, Elizabeth and Luke Smoody, who's not here right now. So without anything else, I'll clip this on if you would. And
thank you, Zane.
And whatever he doesn't cover in his presentation, I'm happy to try to answer and discuss afterwards.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Councilmember Obaji. Pleasure to be here. Again, Mike Wazanski. Had the opportunity and pleasure to speak at the District 5 meeting a couple of weeks ago for Scott. It was a great turnout, great dialogue. This is meant to be informal, not some, kind of long-winded presentation. So I'll try to scoot through these slides as best as possible. At the end, we'll take questions if you have them, if you're interested. Hopefully, I'll cover most of the interesting topics today. Oh, sure. From my popping around here. Yeah. Should have worked on logistics ahead of time here. All right, hopefully that works. Okay, I think if there's one slide that tells the story of the last couple of years, it's this one. Our council, and I've said this in a lot of public forums, is the most active council, the most energetic and committed council I've ever worked for in my career. My career spans not only Redondo Beach for the last 18 years, but the city of Torrance prior to that. Very engaged council dynamic here, very interested in what you all have to say, and have a lot of different policy goals and objectives. What you see on this slide are 3 different numbers. In 2021, we had 862 council agenda items, action items that were taken in that calendar year. In 2022, we had 906 agenda items. We were just picking up steam. In 2023, we had almost 1,100 action items. And some of those items are perfunctory. If you know our agendas, they're ministerial in nature, they're very basic. So that number actually from a volume of true workload standpoint is even higher, over a 25% increase in the last couple of years. This is a very busy council, as I said, and it has put a lot of really good projects and programs into motion. We're very proud of this number, and it's something we'll be continuing to monitor as we go forward. One of the big goals this year, we've got a couple of helpers on that task tonight present. Bob was on our subcommittee that helped us prepare the website. For those of you who've tuned in to the city's website in the last couple of weeks, you'll notice a significant change. Doesn't look like it did for the last 20 years. It looks brand new. It's clean, it's clear, it's concise, and hopefully it's giving you the information you need and you find useful going forward. That was a big project in the making. A couple of years for procurement and another year of design. We had a subcommittee that worked on it with us, with experts in our community. They helped beta test the program, and we are out to launch. If you're there and you experience any difficulty, please let us know. It's a work in progress. It's not a static website. We view it as always in improvement mode. One of the things that's constantly updating is our search capabilities. If you go in there and search information now, it's a little bit limited because we have to sort of partner with Google to ultimately update search terms and make them more and more relevant on an ongoing basis. So if you experience any kind of difficulty, please let us know. Zane mentioned Luke Smoody on our staff, Elizabeth as well. They're available to take those concerns and help ultimately make updates. But we're really proud of this project. It was a big focus in 2023. What we're doing of late in the community that we didn't do a few years back is social media. We were a late adopter of social media in the city, and I have to thank Elizabeth largely for this, who leads our new communications team. We have an approved and adopted communications plan, and it largely focuses on aggregating key information from our departments. You'll see a lot of posts from police, a lot of posts from fire, you'll see video, and then our city's main pages, which we're slowly building followers and trying to get the word out on all the wonderful things the city's doing. But this is a relatively new endeavor for us. We weren't active in the social media world just a couple of years ago. So big thanks to our communications team and Elizabeth for spearheading this big focal point in the last year and year ahead. Exciting project that we're pleased to bring about, online permitting through our community development department, whether it be building permits, entitlement permits through planning, other basic over-the-counter issuances, solar panels, etc. What you'll see over the next few months as we bring this technology on is an online portal that'll allow you to interact with the city, make application, and receive real-time feedback. We're not quite there yet, but we're getting there. What you see on the left there is a kiosk. We've now rolled out point kiosks in our community development lobby, so folks can go there, enter basic application information without interacting at the counter to ultimately accelerate their process and review. Community development has been a big focus for us from a service delivery standpoint. We recently contracted with a consultant to help do an organizational assessment. We are very focused on customer service in that area and ultimately delivering to you quality projects in the community as quickly as possible. And there'll be a few updates on projects that might be of interest to you later in the presentation. Something that's close to you all here in District 4 that's coming online in this spring. I didn't mention it in our District 5 presentation, but our Open Access Plus program at the North Branch Library. For those who've been following, we had a grant that we obtained and ultimately have been executing technological and hardware improvements at the North Branch to allow for an expansion of our operating hours without needing to provide on-site personnel or staff. So ultimately growing our library hours by 20 to 25% without spending any additional taxpayer money. We should have this online in a couple of months. How it works is through a permit program. Well, we'll have applicants come in, obtain a card, provide information. They'll receive a key card effectively that they can use during targeted hours, probably beginning at 10 a.m. or 9 a.m. on open days, come in and they can gain access to the facility without any staff present. There'll be video cameras to monitor what's occurring to make sure it's made safe. And then a couple hours later, when our staff check in for their normal operations, they'll make sure books are in order, circulation is occurring as it should, and monitoring general activity. They'll close out the facility at night. But ultimately, the goal of this program through technology is to give you all access to your resources without us having to monitor that operation. So we're excited about it. A lot of modern libraries are using this technology. And just to be clear, it's not going to mean the end of your local librarian. All the same personnel that are there supporting the North Branch today will continue to be there, just not all hours of the day as we open. So we're excited about this pretty cool project here in 2024. We have focused on hiring for the last, well, it feels like the last decade, but really intently for the last 2 years. Last year in 2023, we hired 20 police officers in the department. We are at full staffing now. That doesn't mean we're at full rollout of personnel. There's field training, there's the academy, there's lots that goes into getting an officer ready to actually patrol our streets. But we are constantly focusing on this. Citywide, we hired 173 people in 2023, most I can ever recall us hiring. We processed nearly 6,000 applications and resumes for the various positions in our community. So very, very busy from a human resource and personnel standpoint. Another focus this last year, and we're really proud of it, is the build out of our quality of life unit in the police department. And that's part of our Special Operations Bureau. And their focus is to deal with code enforcement issues, municipal services support, and homelessness services, and the delivery of homelessness services. We have added code enforcement officers. We have hired additional municipal services officers to supplement our workforce. We have contractors and different service providers that help with our mental health team and our various quality of life outreach to those experiencing homelessness, and ultimately trying to both house them and address concerns that arise in the community. This bureau, this quality of life unit has been a big win for us, and we're enforcing codes like we never have before, whether they be leaf blowers or sign issues or the like. We're very proud of this build out, and we'll continue to focus on it in 2024.
What's the staffing?
Staffing on that, it depends on the target. We have a dedicated sergeant, we have 2 dedicated police officers, and then we have a suite of code enforcement personnel, both full-time and part-time, as well as municipal services officers. So we can get response and enforcement through folks at a lesser expense than paying for a police officer. That's where code enforcement and our municipal services officers really help supplement that resource. If somebody's complaining about a noise issue, right, or a leaf blower, we don't need to send a patrol officer to deal with that concern. We send code enforcement or an MSO. Risk-based inspection program. Those of you who either have a business in the community or live in a multi-unit complex, we implemented this year a risk-based inspection program, and has allowed us to lower fire inspection fees by by 2/3 for those who are in a triplex, and ultimately focus our resources on inspecting the most concerning facilities, whether it be large commercial buildings or industrial complex, and to do that in as efficient way as possible. It takes a lot to create a program like this. You have to build it out. You have to have a fire department, a fire chief, and a fire marshal that are willing to invest in identifying which businesses create more risk than others. And then when you do that, you can comply with state requirements. We're super pleased with the results of this. And for the first time that I can recall working in the city, we have 100% inspection of those high-risk locations. We were very busy this year. Bob was on the committee, Eugene was involved, many folks, on updating our city charter. We have had a lot of outdated language in our charter for years that govern how we purchase supplies and how we bid and bid projects, capital projects, and provide capital maintenance in our community. Our old language, which in some instances was last updated in the 60s, really hamstrung our efficiency and the timeline for us to deliver key capital improvement projects in the community. The Charter Review Committee, who took this on, issued a series of changes that ultimately you all as voters approved, that will pay significant dividends, not just next year, but for the next several decades, that will allow us to continue to be contemporary in our spending limits and our process for project execution. I don't want to bore you with the details, but suffice it to say the old language was very, very controlling and limiting. As an example, we would have to issue formal bidding for any project over $50,000. Can you imagine a capital project in today's environment that costs less than $50,000? It doesn't exist. You can't buy a traffic signal pole for less than $50,000 today. So we're really pleased with this update and the voters' approval of the changes. Well, coming up soon, we've got a couple of General Plan Advisory Committee members here. This has been an 8-year process in the making. The draft General Plan update went out this week and will be kicked around over the next several months. It is draft and will probably need quite a bit of revision, but the preparation of that document has consisted of multiple General Plan Advisory Committee meetings. It'll include additional review by the Planning Commission and the City Council, but it's a long time coming. Beyond that, our Community Development Department over the last couple of years and this last year received approval for our housing element, which, again, I don't want to bore you with the details, but is a very critical document in protecting how housing is constructed in our community and how we meet the state's very arduous obligations to ensure that we're planning and providing capacity for additional housing in our community. The fact that we have that approved, we were one of probably 50 agencies in the SCAG region, which is roughly 200 counties and cities in the area, that received approval on a timely basis under the state statute. We're very pleased with that work. Capital projects, major source of focus over the last several years. We completed 25 projects last year. We spent just about $30 million. That's double what we did the prior 2 years prior, and perhaps triple before that. We've been very active. Our city engineering team has been built out, very robust, and we are very pleased with some of that performance. It's never fast enough, I know, for any of you who watch the grant project or who have been involved in any projects in our community. We want it now. We want it faster. We're working on that, but I can tell you we're delivering at a rate that we've never delivered at before in our community. A couple of additional pictures. We opened a skate park down at the waterfront, really exciting use of that space. We've basic maintenance, updated our pier lights, our railings. We've got improvements coming to the boardwalk. On an upcoming basis, a question was raised, hey, what's happening with the breakwater down in the harbor? It's a very important piece of infrastructure for us. It's what protects us against significant storm surge and wave action. Pleased to announce that the federal government issued a $10 million allocation to the city to allow for breakwater repairs. Those will occur this summer. They're currently in the environmental review process. We would love to have them occur last summer before this year's storm activity, but knock on wood, so far so good on that front, but this summer you'll see activity down there. Also in this area, you're going to see activity for us in the first time in over a decade. We're going to begin dredging the harbor for the sailors in the community. I see Mark in the back. We're going to be dredging our harbor, which if you monitor that space has been getting shallower and shallower over the last several years. So we're excited to see that go forward. A lot of environmental review that goes into that, a lot of design and planning. Great to see the approvals and the execution of that project. They'll be mobilizing this February. You'll probably see boats down there for the next several months after that. For those who visit Aviation Park, we replaced the turf last year. That was a great project. It was several years in the making. That artificial turf was laid down in latter part of the 2000s, and we're pleased to see a new surface there. If you've been out there, it's a great and heavily utilized asset in our community. A project that's coming up in this area, the extension of the North Redondo Beach bike path, that stretch between Felton and Inglewood Avenue. We've got a grant to pay for that. It's in design. We've submitted the design to Southern California Edison, and we're waiting on their approval. And we'll be out to bid and hopefully in construction here in the next year, so we can extend that all the way to Inglewood. From there, we'll be working on turning it south to connect it to Grant and give it over to the South Bay Social District, formerly known as the Galleria. One thing that was really exciting this year is we were able to identify and obtain grant funds to purchase a little strip of property in this area that used to be owned by the cemetery. So now the city controls all of this corner. It can actually make all of that a harmonious space and ultimately beautify this section of town, so you've got a nice point of entry. $1.5 million grant from Metro, courtesy of them, to use here, ultimately create a Redondo Beach city asset. Really, really excited about that. Yes, ma'am.
That red oval, is that the block between Felton and
Felton?
Inglewood?
Yep, exactly. Felton,
Okay.
Perkins, and Inglewood. Yep, exactly.
All right.
And we got in the last budget, 150 or 125,000 to improve that corner on Grant and Inglewood with a native cascade.
Kind of a, yeah, kind of a vertical landscaping plan that should help beautify that space. So we're excited about that. Really pleased to buy that asset from the cemetery and have full control of that space. We used to have the street easement here that connected Ripley and Grant, but this, ironically, this little corner was owned by the cemetery, kind of a strange situation. So happy to have that under control. Manhattan Beach Boulevard, council's been hard at work at that. Our staff have got that out to bid. We've awarded contract. You'll start to see those improvements this calendar year. It'll be busy. Keep your eyes out for detours and temporary construction delays. It's a significant project, almost a $5 million spend. A lot of improvements to the street. There'll be some changes in circulation, but should really make for a much more attractive key boulevard here in town. So we're excited about that in 2020.
Where did you say that was?
Manhattan Beach Boulevard. End-to-end full resurfacing, yes, and landscape improvements in the median. Dominguez Park, for those who've been down there recently, that play equipment has been under duress for quite some time, not in the best of shape. Council's approved a plan, and we've got a contract that's been issued, although there may be some tweaks to it, for a whole new play surface. It'll have one contiguous area. If you know the area now, it's sort of on two different elevations. Now it's going to be regraded. It's going to be a beautiful facility, really exciting. For those who are interested, there's a flyover of the actual design. You can really get a feel for how the play equipment will change in the community. Really exciting project. Also includes some perimeter landscaping improvements and some funds for dog park perimeter improvements, which are kind of underway and being implemented. Eventually, we hope to also beautify the northern slope off 190th Street to create some landscape aesthetic there as well. AES, this is always seemingly a project every year for us, but what we can report, for those who've been following, many of you are probably already aware of this, some of you I think were at the famous switch shut-off ceremony on New Year's Eve, but the power plant is closed. The power plant is no longer generating power. It has no intention of generating power. There's no application with the state to extend its operation. It's closed. It's being mothballed, rendered inert over the next several months. It is offline. One of our next focal points, of course, in addition to worrying about what will happen with the property next, and I won't go into those details today because it is a matter of kind of litigation, to put it mildly. But the AES power corridor here that is controlled by Southern California Edison, those transmission lines, the 220 kilovolt lines that run both down and around and back, these big folks here, those don't have to be there anymore. Now, what ultimately compels Edison to take them down? Who pays for that? How do they get taken down? When? What initiates that action? Got to work through those details, so there's no certainty of that yet. But what we can safely say is in the absence of the power plant, there is no need for that transmission corridor. In fact, not just in our community, there's no need for it in Torrance. Those lines can go all the way back to the La Fresia substation, back outside of Torrance. So a lot of massive changes could occur there. How and when, still unclear, but we're very hopeful and we will be working on that in 2024. Yes, sir.
Fair enough on the schedule. Just for a point of clarity, the tall guys are the ones that are going.
Potentially,
The
yes.
shorter guys are the ones that have to stay because they actually bring power into the city.
Yes,
Is that
good.
fair?
That is fair. However, the 66 kVs that you're talking about, the not quite so tall, those don't have to go west beyond Prospect. They actually can go to Prospect and then turn south down to our station on Nob Hill. So we can get rid of both from Prospect West, both the really tall ones and then the secondary tall ones. Now the distribution lines, these folks, that kind of stuff, the smaller power poles, we're gonna have to keep those to deliver power. We've looked into the cost of undergrounding those lines, the distribution system. It's very expensive. That one, Edison, we don't think we can compel to do. But it's something we're definitely focused on, and just know everybody, our electeds, staff, very much a priority for us in 2024. We've been really busy down on the waterfront. Waterfront Public Amenities Plan, for those who have been following it, is really for us, sets the outline and the foundation for the recreation activities and our public facilities into the future. You'll see a little bit here what it includes, but on a high level basis, you've got Moonstone Park, you've got Seaside Lagoon, you've got the small hand launch facility, you've got the Old Sport Fishing Pier, You've got the waterfront promenade. You've got the final siting of the boat launch facility that's been part of our local coastal program for many years, been an obligation to build, something that's really been difficult to figure out where should it go, where is it safest, where does it provide the best access, et cetera. That's been cited through this process. And then, of course, some improvements to our international boardwalk and the connectivity in the waterfront in general. Very exciting plan. It is just a plan, and it's the starting point for all of our more specific design efforts that really began with the Seaside Lagoon. We have a major contract out to a big-time designer who's helping us envision and figure out how we want to modify that facility. For those who have been in the community a long time, know the lagoon, we have a real challenge down there. That facility is a water discharge facility into the harbor. We take ocean water in, we chlorinate it, we swim in it, right? Our visitors swim in it, we dechlorinate it, we discharge into the ocean. That discharge process creates a lot of environmental liability for us under current water board requirements. We pay fines each year, we get additional exceedances, we get new fines the next year. It's very expensive and it's not sustainable long term. One of the primary goals of the newly designed lagoon will be to end that discharge, that enter facility, discharge from facility, create a circulating system, and actually modernize the operation of the space and get us out of that water quality discharge game that's been so problematic for us. So, and then, of course, beyond that, we'll be adding additional amenities, making it a more flexible event space, creating new recreational opportunities, et cetera. This design is ongoing. There have been pop-up events in the community. There have been public meetings. We'll next be down, I think, in Riviera Village at one of the farmers markets. If you see a booth, go stop in, provide your comments, reach out to staff if you're interested. After the pop-up, the last pop-up event, it'll be before the Harbor Commission, Recreation and Parks Commission, then eventually the City Council for approval of the design. But really an exciting project. We received $10 million of grant funding from the state. Newsflash, that ain't gonna be enough. So we're going to need more, but we're really excited about getting this moving and ultimately getting this constructed. California Surf Club, kind of an exciting new project down the waterfront. For those who have been following the very closed and not so exciting Rubies and On the Rock spaces, we have a new operator in the area who Council, City, and the operator have agreed to a lease term and reinvestment in the space. It's going to be called the California Surf Club. Bit of a restaurant, kind of recreational amenity that has a contiguous plan. Should be really interesting. It's the first significant commercial investment in the waterfront in well over a decade. It's probably since the Kincaid structure was built back in the late 90s. Yes, ma'am.
Any ideas on when that restaurant area will be finished?
They're
or they're even going to start?
Well, they're in the kind of demolition phase. Their vertical construction will start, I think, fairly soon. They're still saying summer. Honestly, those are kind of optimistic estimates. It'll be open hopefully within 2024. I think within this calendar year. They're still shooting for this summer, but it's a difficult time to build anything. It just really is. So we're doing everything we can to expedite their process, review their permit applications. We'll be on top of inspections, et cetera, to help move them along. But the pace of construction these days just generally is quite slow. So if we're open in 2024, I'll personally be quite excited. But it is exciting. Another prospective project down on the waterfront, though we don't have funding for yet, but we have at least contemplated a preliminary design, is the Waterfront Education Center. It's the space where the old Eat at Joe's was, or I'm sorry, not the old Eat at Joe's. No, I don't want to lose Eat at Joe's. Yeah, Joe's Crab Shack. Yeah, God forbid, we don't want to lose Eat at Joe's. But the Joe's Crab Shack site, that facility's been dormant now for several years. The Waterfront Education Facility is part of that Public Amenities Master Plan. There was a design and rendering that was put together by Gensler Architects to help us. It's a vision at this point. It's not the final design, but something to hopefully help generate interest and perhaps get us to grant opportunities with the state or other agencies. But a very cool prospective project if we can find funding for it. Definitely not cheap. Working on the Veterans Park Historic Library. Been a big focus not only in 2023, but we'll be going forward in 2024. We did a request for proposals for a new concessionaire operator. The old operation was really I think, provided decent revenue to the city, but it, in a sense, privatized the space. The only way you gained access to it is if you booked a big party, and not a cheap one, mind you, given the location. What we've done with this RFP is we've said, look, we want a partner that's going to come in and we'll provide special event private space for folks who want to have a wedding there or a big party, but we'll also partner with us to provide programming that'll be open to the public, as well as hold back time that the city can use to program different events. The California Arts 101 exhibition is an example of that, other prospective pop-up cultural activity. But then beyond that, also operate a weekly cafe, a daily cafe really, perhaps with some closure, that will provide access for folks to get into the facility every day of the week, or close to every day of the week, and have an opportunity to get in there, have a refreshment, enjoy the space, and keep that sort of public spirit, because it is a beautiful building, has a lot of great history, and it's just a tremendous asset in our waterfront that right now is just closed to the public, and it's a shame. So we're hopeful with the new partner we can kind of achieve both ends, have some reasonable revenue, keep the building open, keep it operating, keep it maintained, but on the flip side have a new public amenity that's truly available to everybody. Riviera Village, a lot of focus down in the village in the last couple years. Big destination during COVID, you know, our outdoor dining decks that you can see here that have been updated, biking, walking, art, etc. Some really exciting stuff. We were fortunate to work with California Coastal Commission to extend the outdoor dining program through, I think it's July of 2026. So that process can remain. It's been just a great enhancement to the area. We've obtained a grant to design an even longer term strategy that will allow us to actually pull our sidewalks out beyond where those decks are now, reconfigure parking and street flow, not lose any lanes or anything like that, but just build out that sidewalk infrastructure so we can do dining in a more controlled space on the sidewalk in partnership with our businesses and have a more pedestrian friendly area. So really excited about that. Quite a bit of funding would be required to ultimately construct that, but we did get a grant to design it, and then from there we'll see how it goes. But definitely a bright future there. But the village hasn't been our only focus. Artesia Boulevard has been a very, very big focus of ours lately. Thanks to Councilmember Obaji, supported Councilmember Barrett. Artesia is really one of our priorities in not only 2023, but 2024 going forward. What we did get done in 2023 are changes to different land use regulations along the boulevard. Artesia's sort of zoning requirements and preferred land uses were really kind of that old Main Street retail focus, where you'd go down, you'd drive your car, you'd park, you'd buy something, you'd move on, and you'd head out. So we had very rigid parking requirements. We were kind of unfriendly to pedestrian-focused restaurant uses or office or service uses. So we made changes that were part of our ultimate, what we call ACAP, Aviation Artesia Corridor Area Plan. And the council took action to change the ordinance, make updates to the zoning requirements that allow us to be, I think, more investment friendly along the corridor and bring about those uses that we would rather see. As you know, living up here, there's a lot of patrons that live right near Artesia and are better served walking there than getting in their car and driving. Not to say everyone's going to do that. There'll still be ample parking. Trust me, we've got a lot of vacancy on our parking up there. But these changes, I think, will slowly bring about positive revitalization to the corridor. And that will work very much in concert with some of the other activities happening in the area. Another component of that is trying to bring more art to Artesia Boulevard. You know, beautify it through vertical art installation and other landscape improvements. We just talked about that at the meeting last week or 2 weeks ago. And we're really focused on bringing about exciting new cultural visual stimulation to the area. One of the first projects that we hope will be a catalyst in the area is Grub House on the corner of McKay and Artesia. Really exciting spot, the old Kurt's Hardware space you've probably seen change. It's a combination of culinary function, outdoor, indoor restaurant activity. It's sort of a modern feel on, you know, what you would see in a market hall, but designated in that area. Very exciting project. The investors have spent a lot of time getting entitled. They have permit applications in. They've got their first round of corrections in, and they're planning to go vertical here in the 2024 year. So I don't know if it'll be open in 2024. I haven't talked to the developer in the last couple of weeks, but I do think it'll be substantively constructed this calendar year and hopefully open to you in 2025. But should be a great project for the area and exactly the type of change that we've envisioned in the ACAP to try to bring about an update to Artesia Boulevard.
Do you have any ideas of when they're gonna break ground?
They should be breaking down, I would say, I'm guessing in the next 3 months, they'll break ground.
I live like 2 blocks away
Yeah,
from there.
could be a little noisy for a while, but I think it's, yeah. Yeah, exactly. It'll be worth it. It'll be worth a little bit of suffering. Yeah, really cool project though.
What about the traffic considerations on
Not too worried about traffic at that site. It's pedestrian oriented. If you compare it to the old uses there, not a major change. Artesia in general, always thinking about traffic, but again, what we're trying to do with Artesia is bring about businesses that are going to be accessed by pedestrian use or bicycle use. So we're not bringing in new cars, but we're attracting neighbors. It's a place that you all want to go, not somebody coming from miles away having to drive in. So that's the focus, to try to mitigate those concerns. Really think Rub House, with the studies that were conducted, shouldn't have any significant impact in that sense. And what's crazy about Artesia Boulevard, if you think back to the Galleria's heyday, we'll talk about the Galleria in a little bit, the traffic to that location is a fraction of what it was in the 90s, when the Galleria was really humming and it was the kind of commercial shopping area in the LA region. So Artesia traffic in general, Boulevard traffic in general, is probably down from its peak in the last couple of decades. So we've got capacity there, just because the Galleria has really underperformed for quite a few years now.
The traffic's really going eastbound most of the time, and it's just stacked.
Yeah, that part probably hasn't changed. That eastbound morning traffic, the commuter traffic heading out of town, is probably fairly consistent with where it was a few years ago. But I saw a hand raised.
What happened to offsetting the left turn lane?
That is in motion. Yes, that is in motion. We're working on that project, trying to design that, give it a little bit more queue space. You might have seen the recent signal cabinet change. That is a project that is in the queue. That's been an important one for us up there.
Do you have an estimate of time?
I would say this calendar year. I can't tell you when. It takes a while to design, and it takes a while to order that signal cabinet equipment. It's very hard to get that equipment these days. It's been a real challenge in all of the public works industry.
You don't need any equipment, just offset the turn lane.
Well, when you offset the turn lanes, in some instances, you have to reshape the housing structure. You have to change your mast arms. There are changes that come with even what you think are kind of quiet geometrical adjustments. So it seems like it should be an easy fix. I can assure you that on the engineering side, they're focused on it, they're working on it, but it isn't as easy as we would hope.
So just want to chime in. We had the Public Works Director come and speak on the subject, and a couple things we realized. Artesia and Range was the top area where we had left turn accidents, and that's where the offsetting or the lining up of the left turn pockets was most important. But at the other intersections in Artesia, there was a lot of blown red lights where if we did line up the intersections, the left turn pockets, it wasn't going to make a difference. We lose the U-turn capability at any intersection where we line up the left turn pockets. So it seemed like Artesia and Ringe was the top priority. The left turn doghouse was changed, and next is going to be the left turn pockets will be lined up. After that, we're going to see what other changes we need to undertake at the other problematic intersections. But it's like going to a doctor. They got to diagnose the correct problem, and the left turns aren't the problem at Artesia and Belton and some of the others.
Artesia and Blossom is the issue.
Okay, well, I'll discuss that with them. They have a whole chart showing every accident that's occurred there, at least that's been reported, and how it occurred. So then they look at, okay, well, what solution can take place? But to that end, we put up radar feedback signs on both ways on Artesia Boulevard around Ringe, because that's the high kind of fatality intersection. Try to bring people's attention to their speed and their need to kind of slow down in the area. And hopefully, if we put in art, it'll also give people another thing to look at and slow down as they go down the boulevard.
Most of the time that we see these presentations, I've been to hundreds of them, literally, especially on the Artesia Aviation Corridor. There seems to be a misunderstanding about this neighborhood
Mhm.
and what is going on traffic-wise with the ongoing density from the decisions that were made by the city in the 60s and the 70s.
Right.
This isn't Mr. Abaji's fault
No.
or your fault
No.
or anything like that. It has to do very, very directly with decisions that the city made in the 60s and
Yep.
the 70s. Unfortunately, we're now all living with those changes.
Yeah.
As a result of that, Artesia has become a major traffic corridor,
Yeah.
trying to get to the 405
Yeah.
from all of the people that live on the hill or in South Redondo or other parts of the South Bay. Of course they need to get there. They have to go to their jobs and carry on with their lives. However, it's getting to the point now where Artesia is such a problem that every one of these little pieces of minutia that others
Yeah.
here are bringing up become a part of the larger problem. They're all cutting through all our side streets now. They're all, Ringe has become an arterial,
Right.
although it's not an arterial.
Right.
Could you
Right.
imagine having a driveway that comes out on
Right.
Ringe right now?
Yeah.
God, I'm glad I don't.
Yeah.
So, enough of that, but you get my point.
Absolutely.
This is a major focus for anybody that lives in this neighborhood.
Yeah.
The Artesia corridor, easements, larger sidewalks.
Yep.
Slow people.
Greater
down.
setbacks. Yep.
All of these things are huge focus. It's nice to see things like what's going on down at the pier. Those are important. But up here, you start talking to us, we're gonna talk Artesia corridor and the
Yeah.
aviation corridor all day long.
Yeah.
And I've
Yeah.
been here since 1989.
Yeah.
So, what do you wanna know?
Right, and I appreciate that, and it is overdue, and our focus there, I see being very attentive over the next several years. There's a lot that needs to occur. The beautiful thing is Artesia can become a neighborhood serving arterial. For whatever reason, for decades, it was a regional serving arterial, and it doesn't need to be that. Like, as you pointed out, with the density in this general vicinity, there's an opportunity to really become that local service providing street. And that's what we're trying to do with the ACAP in recognition of that.
And,
So,
and I want to recognize that all these little things that we've done here over the last, let's call it 6, 8, 10 months, we've improved signals. We improved the signals at the crosswalk today, the
Yeah.
last few days.
yes,
Guys were up there today again working.
yes,
I walk the street every day and I take pictures. I've got it all documented.
yeah,
I mean, we're watching that closely.
that's great.
So we really appreciate the focus. We appreciate the budget dollars. However, it was neglected for so incredibly long.
Yeah.
That we have a lot of catching up to do. And I thank you for all
Yeah.
that you're doing.
And thank you, by the way, also for reporting. I remember the newsstands. When I first got elected,
Yeah.
we were like, we need to get rid of these newsstands. And we've got them more or less almost all out.
I miss the LA weeklies.
Right? Yeah. You were the top complainer about it. But here's the thing, folks. Artesia Boulevard, as it concerns traffic and development, is not an area where we can just do one thing. We need to do everything right. That's why last budget, it was Scott Barrett's and my priority to get more traffic enforcement officers. For the first time in a very long time in this city. Traffic is #1 for the city. And even in the police polls, their polls to you guys was, hey, you guys would say, our #1 issue is people speeding, running red lights, so on and so forth. By the way, there were drive slow Redondo lawn signs and license plate frames in the back. Please take one if you've got a yard. And so we added 2 new officers, but they don't come down like this, right? They gotta be recruited, they gotta go through the academy, they gotta go through motor cop school, and some of them actually just went through training, and we've got 2 more. But at the time that we made that motion, there were 0 officers on bicycles, on motorbikes, because
Zero deployed.
four
Yeah.
of them were injured. There were 4 assigned to the squad, but 4 of them were injured.
Yeah.
Hopefully by this time next year, there are 6.
We've got 4 now.
So yeah, we've got 4 on bikes now. And as it concerns development, I can go through, we can go through later, all the different regulations we're changing to try to get attractive development, including increasing the FAR to 1.5 on Artesia Boulevard. But everything's in motion as fast as possible. It's the #1 thing that comes up for me on his reviews is faster, faster, faster on Artesia Boulevard. He's like, I'm going as fast as I can.
Is Artesia a surveyed street for radar?
Yes, we have to do regular surveys in order to enforce speeds, yes.
So aren't the officers out there doing radar? And people
It's-
are hauling ass, man.
Yeah,
on
it's a matter of,
It's just-
It's a fair question, and it's really just a matter of deployment and resource availability. So we're working on that. As Zane mentioned, we're building that unit out. We're restoring deployment there that was lost for quite a few years due to injuries and industrial concerns. So we're pleased with that. We'll get there, and it is a focal point. And if you've got particular observations, share them with us. Share them with our police department, and we do deploy according to those observations. If we have identified areas of concerns, we'll go out and look at them. We could always do more, no question, and we'll strive to be more available in that regard. Yes, sir.
4 cities have gotten approval from the legislature to do ticketing through
Cameras.
radar,
Yeah.
speed radar. Are we on the list to be next?
I made a referral to try to agendize a discussion for traffic enforcement, photos and cameras and stuff, and I didn't even get a second, okay, let alone 3 votes to agendize the subject.
Yeah, that we're not on the list next. That those cities you read about, Burbank and some of the others, they're going to kind of trial and error it. I think, there's pros and cons to the red light cameras as an example. This is kind of a takeoff on that. So we'll see where it goes. I can tell you in the last few years we're deploying more speed radar feedback signs. We've done more with geometric design in our streets to try to slow speeds than we ever have before. This is a focal point. We have a really committed traffic engineering team. We've got our traffic. We had a vacancy in the traffic engineering position for quite some time. We had a difficult time recruiting, adjusted the position, added resource, added salary to it. Have a wonderful, Ryan's doing a fantastic job, our new engineer. So he's on this stuff. Please share your concerns. He's working with PD. It's top of mind for council. Scott and Zane have really been bird dogging this.
You've got license plate recognition. Can you read and send warnings?
That's a great question. I don't think currently as it pertains to speed, but that's not to say that the tech won't eventually get us there. That's a fair inquiry. So yes.
One of the meetings you mentioned, I know if I walk across PCH and Pearl and streets like that, when all the lights change, we actually get an initial, like the crosswalk goes on first before any other red lights come off. That way it gives you kind of a fighting chance before the car makes a right turn and tries to take you out as you walk across the street.
Yep.
Is any of that implemented on the Artesia Boulevard?
It is something we're looking at. In fact, we just adopted a change in our policy to allow us to implement that in appropriate locations. We'll be looking at Artesia. The pro, of course, is that additional safety that comes for the pedestrian and that delay. One of the issues we're having on Artesia, Zane mentioned, is we've had a lot of folks running red lights. Right. And that's been generally the cause of accidents on Artesia, speeding and running red lights, and in some cases, driving while intoxicated. There's not much we can do about that, the DUIs and the running the red lights. Those are a challenge. But that delay helps with that pedestrian movement, does create some safety there. That gap then does stagger the delay between the red light actually taking place and then getting the green, so you don't have quite that same juxtaposition. The downside of that is you get less throughput because you add a little lag. So you've got to study each location. What I've learned in my years, both having served in public works and in this capacity and others, traffic engineering and solutions are sometimes counterintuitive. They really can be, and they have to be properly studied and considered. Quick fixes can create problems. So, but yeah, we're looking at it. If we've added the tool to the toolbox, hopefully it'll help pay dividends. Yeah.
I noticed that it seems to work a lot on PCH.
It does. I really like it there, especially at Diamond and PCH. I like it.
I have an anecdotal update for you guys from Chief Hoffman on that car accident where the driver killed the woman who worked at Lockheed Martin on Artesia and Ringe running a red light. That individual was booked on murder, actually, for that accident because he was perpetually driving under the influence, and he was arrested in Colorado, and our officers flew out.
Yeah, we extradited him. Yeah, last week.
Yeah.
So no, we are on this stuff. We are very much of interest. Yes, ma'am.
Out of curiosity, does police patrolling presence have anything to do with traffic violations as running red lights and that? Years, I've been living on Carnegie for 24 years, and when they used to hang out at Rod's, traffic was a lot slower. They have been there for a number of years, and I've been watching speeds increasing and that, and I've brought it up many times, and I seem to get the same answer. No, it doesn't. I don't go there because I know in South Pasadena, they talked about the police presence, so watch the way you drive.
Yeah.
So if you get a reputation, people will slow down.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, what you'll hear sometimes is the statistics don't necessarily show a correlation, but I think it takes all, it has to be a multi-pronged approach, right? It's got to be a communication, outreach campaign, the Drive Slow Redondo, educating ourselves, holding ourselves accountable for that. You need enforcement to back that up, so there's real teeth to that. And you need physical presence, and you need smart engineering design where possible. The challenge sometimes is we're accommodating and adjusting these streets in very limited capacity, right? We don't have setback on the corners that we'd like to have, so you have sightline visibility constraints, partly due to the density that has occurred over the years with construction and the lack of, and just the ultimate build out. So we're adjusting where we can. We're bringing in broader signals. I think the changes on Grant are really going to pay dividends for us, certainly from a walkability standpoint. Should slow speeds. Anytime you choke a lane from a geometry standpoint, you're going to see people slow down. It's another one of those weird things in traffic that I've learned. The more vertical you have, the more vertical sightline constraint, the slower you drive. Ironically, you could have the widest street out there, but if you've got this framed vertical installation with landscaping or other types of things, you slow down. It's one of those weird things. Narrowing lanes slows down speeds as well. So, which feels uncomfortable when you're driving, right? Because it's sort of, I can't drive as fast because I've only got a few feet to work with. So there are little things that can be done. We're doing everything we can with our resources available, but it is top of mind. I can tell you that with absolute sincerity. Yes, ma'am.
So when we speak with the brand, we're also supporting for helping with the traffic. The problem that we experienced in the last rain, it is raining, but we expected every stop. If it's flooded our house, immediately after 10 minutes, we spoke to Mr. Bagley to help to get a city engineer. And they look at that and said, it's fine, cleaning up. The problem is after cleaning up, my husband literally out there in the middle of the night, after 20 minutes of moderate rain, trying to steer the water around.
Yeah.
And with the whole problem with the new design, the truck, when they sweep the street, they don't get in. They push a bunch of trash bags in front of our house. We call public work. They contact Athena. They say, oh, we can't do anything because it's not a street moving there. So unless if they send the truck out, it has to be 24 hours. And they said they can't, but we were there at the house. There's no truck come. They zip right through when they street sweeping it. And as of right now, we still have a pile of leaves.
There's some debris there.
Trash.
Yeah.
It's coming.
Yeah.
It's Saturday, Sunday, and Monday.
Yeah, I appreciate that concern, and I have, I think, been copied on a couple of those emails. I can tell you that I will be following up with Public Works on that, see where we're at. We'll continue to monitor the location. We may have to do spot cleaning for the time being. Not sure if there are solutions from an actual construction standpoint that might help. I don't know. We are working on finding ways to more sustainably clean those bulb out areas to try to reduce debris. It's not easy with the tools that we have at our disposal, but we are working on that. So appreciate your concern. Please stay in touch with our Public Works Department. It is an area that we'll monitor as a hot spot. We'll do what we can.
I think the problem is at the corner between Grant and Felton. During the rain, all the water will flow and from the Grand Avenue flow through that corner.
And it's turning down, yeah.
Yeah, because you guys expand the sidewalk, so right now it's blocked the water, and if it go to the really small gutter below the sidewalk, it's not enough.
Okay,
The problem here is the design. The design doesn't work.
yeah.
Even you clean it out,
It might not just be able to handle the flow. So if that's the case, we'll investigate that,
then,
look at changes, yeah.
We have been living there for since 2010, and this year the first time we experienced the flooding.
Interesting, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
and it got into our house
yeah.
every time the rain happened.
Was this the rain couple weeks back, right?
Yeah.
That was an exceptional downpour, that hour
Not-
that
not
we
the
experienced.
first day. It's the first day was pouring down, but even after that, so then we
Okay.
call, so we get someone to spot clean.
Yeah,
And the night after that, it was 0.2
Okay.
inches over 8 hours. It
Okay.
should be moderate rain, but it immediately booked up, and then
Yeah.
that's why my husband, even with the sandbag, it's not enough.
Not
So
enough.
he was out pushing the water, literally
Yeah,
trying
gotcha.
to not get it into the
Okay.
ground. So it's pretty severe.
okay,
I mean, for that one day, it was very exceptional rain, but following there wasn't, and we definitely have like a lot of rain last year too, but
Yeah.
it's never even get into close to like middle of the road,
Yeah.
like it's now flooding right back down.
Yeah. Well, maybe we can talk a little bit after the meeting. We can exchange information, and I can ensure that you stay in touch with Public Works and see if we can work on that. Yeah.
Is getting the crew out there before the next rain is this upcoming week,
Yeah.
and then really assess it with either video or.
Yeah.
others.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
did happen to catch Athens cleaning the streets when all the leaves were there, and, well, first off, they were going at quite a clip, and when that bulb out, and they were pushing, I saw a ton of leaves
Mhm.
out of the way, but they missed the part that really catches them all. They went kind of past it.
Yeah.
So not only were they pushing all those leaves, but I
Yeah,
think
they kinda
more
deposit
leaves
'em.
got stuck
Yeah,
in there
yeah.
because of the way they were street cleaning.
Yeah, it's the size of the rig. What we may have to do long term is adjust the contract. Might cost us some money, but we may have to adjust the contract to ask that they bring in smaller apparatus that can address the issue. It will require significant changes to their schedule, so it probably isn't a quick or efficient fix for them. But we'll explore that, and certainly we'll keep top of mind your situation. So I'll talk to Public Works about that tomorrow.
Yeah, like just like similar to like what you just said.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
it happened at our corner, and we call Public Works, we call Athens, and then eventually we need to send like the picture to them,
Yeah.
and they say, oh, they will come and clean, and then after 2 weeks, like nothing happened.
Didn't happen. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, keep us apprised. We'll be in touch. Okay. Yes.
Hi, yeah, excuse me, I've lived here for 33 years on McKay, and I've seen a lot more progress finally, for the past couple of years, and I applaud that so much. But I was always wondering on Artesia to bring in new business, like the mom and pops, like the bakeries or things like that we all can use in this community. That was always like my dream. Wow, there's little beach town and in walking distance, because I do walk all on those bike path areas and all that. I mean, I try to use the facilities that are here. But I noticed that there's a lot of stores that I don't know, there's like so many smoke shops now, and it's not this kind of shops that I would use.
Right.
I mean, I want to be able to go to a cafe and support my mom and pop
Right.
stores and the bakeries
Yeah.
or whatever like that, you know. And I go out of town. I mean, I'll go to Hermosa Beach or whatever the other places to support those mom and pop stores rather than my
Right.
little
Right.
city here
Right, yeah.
in Redondo.
Because it's not there to offer. Yeah.
Right, and also, I was always wondering, why is it that Torrance Boulevard leads to King Harbor, and then our North Redondo has Artesia? It doesn't have an ocean name or Redondo Beach, and it's Manhattan Beach Performing Arts Center, Redondo Beach Performing Arts Center on Manhattan Beach Boulevard. And it just frustrated me all the time. I'm like,
Yeah.
you know, Torrance Boulevard leads to King Harbor. You know, why didn't they have a name that really brings us out, Redondo Beach? I'm proud of this city.
Yeah,
But don't.
It's funny you mention that. For several years, we kicked around the idea of renaming Artesia Boulevard to Redondo Avenue. And it was a bit of a challenge. We couldn't get quite enough support from the businesses, and so we opted not to do it. It's a branding issue. Artesia, the name came when the highway was created, so we lost some of that local feel. But I couldn't agree more with you. The goal with this plan is to try to bring about just the type of businesses you described. Our old zoning didn't really encourage it. And I will say the other challenge we have is we have a lot of, and I don't mean to denigrate it, but we have a lot of out-of-town landlords. The people who own the businesses on Artesia Boulevard, they're not, for the most part, Redondo or even South Bay residents. They live in the valley, they live off-site, and for them, it's just a profit center. So we're trying to see turnover there. We're trying to create value to the boulevard that will bring about new investment, maybe new buyers. So we're hoping to see the changes you described. We're just not there yet. These documents we think will create a building block for us.
And how do they get selected? I mean, who handles?
It's the owner. Yeah, the owner. We don't get to control, unfortunately, you mentioned the smoke shops. We can't control the businesses that ultimately lease from the property owners that own the storefronts. It's
That's so frustrating, because I'm like, oh God, this would be perfect for this. Or,
Right.
I want to be able to support them. I would bring all my friends, it's just like, you want to support the
Of course.
mom and pops. You miss
Yeah.
those.
Yeah, there's free market economics there that drive some of those changes. So what we try to do is create, like I said, value to hopefully bring about change and more, not just investment, but investment from the right kind of business.
And I love the South Bay Hardware. I'm there all the time. They know my name. I use
Yeah.
them all the time. I know it's not a mom and pop,
Yeah.
but it seems like it for our community.
Absolutely. I've got a few more slides. Maybe I'll get through those, and then we'll do any final questions we can take at the end, just out of fairness of time. But no, really appreciate your comments. All right, so jumping ahead here, another big effort. Councilmember Abaji's really been spearheading this. But upcoming this calendar year is going to be the Metro Board's decision on the alignment of the Green Line extension. I'm sure all of you have been reading about that. There are a few options. The option that's unanimously supported by our community, our city council, is what is called the Hawthorne alignment. That's not necessarily the consensus among the South Bay and the 3 cities that are involved, Torrance, Lawndale, and Redondo Beach, so it's quite the debate. There's an upcoming board meeting at the COG level next week, or a couple weeks from now, that will be discussing this. In the next few months, the Metro Board will be, I think, making a determination here. We're staying abreast of the situation and doing everything we can to lobby for our preferred outcome, but it is certainly a big focus in 2024. And then last, one positive thing, although it's not a certainty, I do unfortunately have to caveat this, is the South Bay Social District improvement, the old Galleria renovation project. The L. Catterton, who owns the space, is still a very interested investor. They are still very pleased with the potential of the project. They see it as viable. They see it as being, again, a very strong commercial center in the LA region. They love the demographics that could ultimately support the project. They are just working against very significant interest and construction headwinds, and the lending market that is ultimately needed to support a project like this. They're struggling to obtain the financing they need to execute construction. So they're working through the issues. In the old days, you could go out, borrow money, you could show them your renovation plan, the fact that the city's entitled the project, and you could say, hey, here's my leasing strategy. These are the businesses we're going to go out and talk to. And you get a financier to go, hey, here you go, here's your construction loan, 5% cost, 6% cost, something affordable. Go get it. This is, have a good time. Can't wait for the project to come on board. These days, with current interest rates, that market is somewhere between 9 and 12% of cost. And then beyond that, those banks and those lenders, they don't just let you have a plan. They want you to have over 50% of your space under contract for lease. That's a very difficult bar. And they're working through it. They're trying. They're committed. All of their applications for permits and construction are in. The plans have been approved. They can pull those permits at any time. It's right now down to the lending market and them obtaining the financing they need to build the project. So they're hopeful. They're not quitting, but I will say it's a significant headwind that they're up against right now. Yes, Bob?
Are they discussing additional resolution?
Yeah, so as you know, they're approved for the 300 units on the corner of Artesia and Hawthorne. The site, you know this, several of you in this room know this, was initially studied perhaps to have as much as 750 residential units on the campus. They bumped it down to 650 in the final analysis. So they have capacity under their environmental analysis to build more. I suspect, while we haven't seen a formal application yet from them, they have told us that one potential way to enhance their lending viability is to add additional residential to the project. I suspect they will come at us for additional units, and they will make application for those. They're working through how best to situate them on the property, where they would make most sense, what would ultimately be the best combination for their needs in the neighborhood. So they're working through that, but yes, to answer your question, I think they will likely both desire that and perhaps need that to get the project over the hump. So.
And they'll be entitled to it because it's part of our certified housing plan.
Yeah, so and it is, and if you're adding any kind of residential density to our community, this is one of the more logical places to put it, you know, given the size of the space, its proximity to transportation, et cetera.
School district is ready for that?
Yeah, the school districts did an updated study with them. They didn't see any major impact to them. Ironically, they're experiencing declining enrollment right now. Now, I don't know how long that will last. It's the first time in a while they've been declining, but they weren't too concerned about the additional units. So we'll see where that goes. Like I said, no formal application yet. I think they have worked on some preliminary designs. I know they've narrated that to us, potentially that need. But like I said, El Catterton's a great owner. They're a multi-billion, you know, one of the largest, in fact, I think the wealthiest, the part owner of El Catterton is the wealthiest, I think, current individual on the planet right now. So it's a good group, but you know, the thing about these capital groups is they don't spend their own money on construction. They go out and borrow it. So we'll see where this leads. But it is going to be a really nice project if it is built. We are excited about it. Yes, sir.
So if they, let's say they get approval for more housing, probably rental housing, I assume.
Mm-hmm.
Can they then sell that rental housing to like another
Different operator?
Yeah, a different operator, and then do we have any protections to say, or is it possible to say, you know, these are the guidelines in terms of how the property looks, because it's a kind of like a marquee location when you enter off the freeway. So if they're like, hey, we just want to make money off this, it could use a paint job or something like that, like what protections do we have?
Yeah, good question. Very good question. Yes, the first part of the question, yes, they can bring on partners to operate. El Catterton by trade isn't really a residential community landlord. So they're definitely going to bring on a property partner, at least to operate, if not to co-own, or perhaps even own in full. They'll have that capacity. The real tool we have to govern the condition of the property is really what we call out for in our resolutions during entitlement. There are some restrictions, there are some maintenance standards that are included there. If they were to be entitled, theoretically, for another tranche of residential, another phase of residential, we would likely add similar conditions on an ongoing basis. We actually have a shared use agreement for the property along Kingsdale. They have an obligation to actually landscape that, plant that, maintain that as part of the meandering landscape program there down the road. So there are ways to do that. But yes, they could potentially sell it to an operator, and likely will, just because they're not expert in that area. Yeah. Yes, Greg.
Yeah, you
Mr.
mentioned
Craig.
about the ability to accommodate the additional kids that will be in the school district when that comes on board. Last night, there was a big discussion about problems with parking at the school already, and you said that according to their records, they have declining enrollment. Well, last night, they said the exact opposite.
Yeah.
So I guess to Councilmember Obagi, I think this is something we should be following up with the school board and figuring out what's the story, because
Yeah.
if we're adding 300, 600 units or more, we're gonna have a big problem.
Well, I have met with our school board member, Raymer Flynn, and she's told me that they would not have a problem accommodating more residential coming in here. But whether it's inclining or declining, we've got a school board subcommittee that interacts the liaisons with the school board for the first time in a while, actually, coordinating policy.
And it is part of it. And
you know, more or less, the school board's totally separate though from the city.
Right,
We
but
got
I think it's
people on our
something
plate.
we partner with them, but, you know, we also have to make sure that it doesn't, at the expense of residents, that's all.
Sure, well,
Yeah.
I intend to send my daughter, she's 3 years old, to Redondo Beach School, and she's gonna go to one of the schools right next to this, so.
And I think the other thing to consider here is the nature, and you know this, Wayne, the nature of these units isn't necessarily as conducive to families and children. So part of the calculation in the study is that, you know, these one-bedroom apartments, not to say that you wouldn't see potential children in there, you could, but you're not likely to necessarily see quite the student enrollment from a project like this that you would through a tract out.
2 kids in a one-bedroom apartment.
Yeah, exactly. So that's part of the calculation, and in no question, the high school at whatever now, 3,000 students, 2,950 or whatever Nikki tells me of late, is less than what they were at their peak of 3,100 or 3,200. But it's still, to your point, significantly higher than the 2,400 they had sustainably over the last decade. So whether they're temporarily declining, they're still way up compared to where they were before the bond, as an example. Yes, sir.
And personally, I'm just a little naive on the line extension. Can we just go back to that? Like,
Sure.
where would these potential extensions be, and then how does it impact or like improve the Galleria or just flow from LA to?
If you want, let him finish his presentation, and then I'm happy to answer all
Yeah.
that, because I gotta cut him out, he's got an early morning today.
That's it. That's actually the end of it. South Bay Social District. So if you want to chat about that, we can. So, yes, that's it. Any questions? Any topic is on the table. Happy to spitball just about anything. You know.
Okay.
Yes.
My-
Yes.
My question is, were there extra monies allocated to maintenance on the right-of-way for the bike path?
There.
It's looking pretty savvy.
It's
They're
pretty
like
shabby.
Bernie and
Yeah.
Vanderbilt.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty shabby. We have expanded our park services workforce. We did add some additional part-time labor to help with that. We are working to, I think, focus on that site. The challenge we have is watering.
I showed up 2 days in September and left all the crap there, and it's still there,
Yeah, and
along with the holes he made filling in.
right. So part of that concern is just so for us, right, the right-of-way wasn't in our parks maintenance division, wasn't ever viewed at the same standard as a park was, right? It was we were focused on our parks and our parkettes and the quality landscaping there. The right-of-way, we had limitations with what we could plant there, with what we could ultimately maintain. The irrigation system, as I mentioned, very archaic, lots of holes, very sporadic. And then when we had the conservation movement, right, where we had water restrictions, we had to shut it off, which basically meant it went fallow. We had gopher holes, place became a mess.
Yeah,
Yeah, you know it all too well. So it is something we're trying to improve, but it would require really a significant adjustment to the Park Services Division to really maintain it to a park standard. And we would have to make a fairly big investment in the irrigation to have it be a sustainable landscape type structure.
Leveling it. The trucks
Just grading it out,
to,
yeah.
mow the weeds get
Yeah.
stuck in there. Right now,
Yeah.
there's like these huge divots where some vehicle got stuck there, and they put in, these pieces of cardboard to get out of there. And
Yeah.
did they pick up the cardboard? Nope, still there.
Well, please send me those
I have
pictures.
pictures.
Send me those pictures. I'll forward that on.
I have
Yeah, yeah. It's when we did the improvements north and south of Artesia Boulevard. It was over. Our current estimate is about $1 million an acre to get it really improved. So it's not cheap. It was like pulling teeth to get Edison to approve our landscape plan. It's very difficult to do that.
I was wondering if any funds were allocated for.
Just a little bit of help.
Between Artesia.
Yeah, not to substantively change what your expectation there. I hate to say, yeah. Yes.
I think the other resident, you've been here for some decades now. I'm relatively new, been here for about 3 or 4 years. It seems like the level of investment in South Redondo is there. Do they also sort of see the shift to kind of allow us to invest in Artesia a little bit further, and then the stuff that attracts developers like the FAR and maybe parking ordinances, like, do we feel confident in like having the right plan that speaks to developers? I mean, I would love for there to be more walkability there as well, eventually.
Yeah, I can tell you this. I've been with the city for 18 years. I've watched a lot of city budgets and have had a lot of direct control over them of late. We're investing more time, money, and strategic planning priority to North Redondo and Artesia Boulevard than we ever have before. Unequivocally, I can tell you that, largely due to the leadership of the council. So I can tell you that is the case. What you're seeing in the south end of Redondo, in some part, is supported by the local business improvement district that has been self-initiated. So they invest as a business community. We've tried to start BIDs up here on Artesia. We don't have quite that support yet. That's why we need a couple of these catalytic developments to occur. So we have invested stakeholders that will care enough to be champions among their peers, their business peers, to help sustain this into the future. So we need a few wins. Got to hit a few singles and doubles, I think, before we can really see sustainable change.
Two of the issues that we identified were problematic on Artesia Boulevard is the inability to build on Artesia. Floor area ratio. It's at 0.5. That means if you have 1,000 square feet of land, you can only build 500 square feet. We've made the decision to triple that to 1.5, but the environmental is still ongoing. That hasn't come into effect yet. Parking was the other issue we realized. We're requiring way too much parking. We did the environmental on that. We got the feedback from the parking consultants on the different strategies we could take. We said we wanted the most flexible strategy so people could trade parking, they could borrow from the city, etc. But we haven't actually implemented that regulation yet. We haven't
No.
passed.
No, we have.
passed the
Yes,
parking
yes, we did the
regulation.
text amendments to do that. So
Okay.
you implemented the 0.5 to 0.6 FAR change, so you
Right.
did at least get a 20% growth there.
Right.
And you did make the parking regulation and preferential uses changes to the code. So
Okay,
those are in
so those
place.
are in place.
Yeah.
All right, so we have improved on parking, but the big change is gonna occur as to development when we have, the incentive for people to demolish what's there and build anew, something that really occupies the land space there.
And ideally turn over the property owner.
And
Yeah.
every time we've had an initiative, I've had an initiative before Councilmember Barrett was elected, to do something on Artesia Boulevard. I've been supported by my Southern colleagues. In addition, just the meeting we had 2 weeks ago, there's $500,000 unallocated in the John Parsons Art Fund. That's for art. 100%, every single dollar there came to Artesia
Artesia.
Boulevard for just this next year. And we essentially signaled that we want another $500,000 in future years to make it a total of $1 million in art coming to Artesia Boulevard.
Eugene?
One thing to tie into what Councilmember Obagi just said and what City Manager Lozansky's talking about, when projects like the South Bay Galleria come to fruition, and they're all ready to go and they have those permits, as soon as they begin building, as soon as they pull those permits and start doing things, we can look and set a timeline for fresh revenues to come into the city that are coming in the form of something called Quimby fees that they pay that go to support our parks, that'll be spent typically in the area in which those fees are generated, here in North Redondo. You're gonna have other fees associated with that project that are to be spent on Artesia Boulevard. As part of that agreement, some specific monies were coming to Artesia Boulevard, the John Parsons Art Fund, the Councilmember Obagi. So a lot of those things that happen, those big projects start to come through, then monies that are otherwise being allocated for maintenance, our green belts and places, we're gonna have a lot of money coming in to improve our parks, improve Artesia Boulevard, make that area, as you mentioned, sir, a real gateway. And then those people that have buildings and buildings on Artesia Boulevard are gonna start getting approached by a lot of people who say, hey, I'd like to buy you out and start redeveloping this area. So it's catalytic, like the city manager described. It can really be a great waterfall of events that will happen.
And I'll say to your point, I too am disappointed to see a smoke shop come in. I'm shocked that they're able to sustain that huge space.
Yeah.
Those are a ton of bombs.
It came from Manhattan Beach.
Right, okay, so in any event, they've come. But you know what? So has Michael's. Michael's Cafe is about to open up. That's the same as the Michael's Embroidery Shop. They're gonna be employing in January. It's a beautiful space. I went in there, you can look through the window. It's a beautiful white painted space. They sealed the floors. It's gonna be a cafe that employs people with developmental disabilities, teaching them how to work and the like as a cafe, and it'll be event space and the wine shop also in the evening. That's where the old
Next to the
natural,
Box Brothers.
yeah, where the old Natural World Cafe was. And when the Box Brothers lease expires, they bought that land. They're gonna expand into that and put in a gift shop and the like.
They bought the entire facility and they bought the parking lot behind it.
Right, and they
That's what's important is
they
they have a lot of
repainted
parking.
actually the walls. They had volunteers repainted the walls on the parking lot. It looks beautiful out there. Expanded the deck. I don't know if you recall, between Natural World Cafe and Michael's, there was another business that came in, Indian or Zena's came in. They had pallets with junk on it. And it just was not good. So that's a good thing that came out. Across the street, there's a Pilates studio that came in, beautiful. So good things are happening in small increments. But once Grub House comes in,
Yeah.
and some of these other businesses come in.
And a couple of projects that I know Zane's been asking about for some time and been really keeping tabs on that I can say confidently now are back under construction and are moving forward are El Tarasco and Pita Cafe. They both had inspections in the last month. There are a couple of corrections they have to make, but they're close to actual final. So with a few more adjustments, we should see those two businesses open here in the next few months.
All right, last question, and then let's cut was answered.
It's on the size of the sign, because that smoke shop sign
Yeah, we'll address that through code enforcement. There is an ability under the code to do temporary signage for, I forget the amount of time, 4 to 6 weeks or something. So once that's lapsed, we have an ability to go out there and hopefully remove the obnoxious sign. We haven't always been great about that on Artesia. It's one of those things where we start to get just acclimated to these things. But please, if you see those concerns, Zane he forwards them to me all the time. But if you see him, pass them along to Zane, pass them along to me.
We
We'll-
did bring that all up when
Yeah.
the other smoke shop painted
Right.
whatever the heck it was on the side of the building.
Yes, and it
The
looks
city attorney told us that that was okay.
it's not graffiti, it's technically.
Yeah,
not graffiti.
yeah, paint is not something we can do.
I'm going to call BS on that, it's graffiti,
Well,
doesn't fit the neighborhood.
no,
And this is the kind of feedback that we get from
Yeah.
the city when the people of this neighborhood bring it up to the city. This is why
Okay.
you get people like myself that get so frustrated.
Frustrated, yeah.
I've been here since 1989, you allow this stuff, and then people say, well, we don't get feedback from
Alright.
you. You're getting feedback.
yeah,
We
yeah.
don't like that stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
I get
Is anything clearer?
It's pretty clear,
I get
pretty
your
clear.
point. But for that code, for the graffiti municipal code to be enforced, the city attorney has to bring charges. And if the city attorney thinks that he can't support the charges on First Amendment grounds,
I
then,
understand.
he can't
I
prosecute.
understand, but the point that I will argue every time is that this city has not heard this because they've heard it out of my mouth since 1989. So I know for
Yeah.
a fact you've heard it, and you've heard it over and over and over again, and yet we continue to suffer from these horrible monstrosities.
Kind of
that get
business
put up.
operators,
Why
yeah.
should- What the young lady has brought up with
Maybe,
regard to
maybe
the smoke
sign,
shop.
sign.
Why should we, that are paying millions of dollars for condominiums, right off these side streets, have to deal with people that wanna put those kinds of things up?
Yeah, yeah,
Why?
I understand the frustration, I really do.
It's not Mr. Obaji's fault, it's not your fault,
Yeah,
but what is the code
Yeah.
enforcement, and what are we doing about it?
right, and what I can tell you is, we are actively investigating every potential code enforcement concern along Artesia that we can.
Thank you.
And we've actually closed a lot of them out. The real success here is when we actually attract businesses that will choose to do things that are far more accretive to the neighborhood and the aesthetic feel of the boulevard. And right now, we're still dealing with the landlord lease tenant cycle that isn't attracting the highest quality operators. And that's what we got to change.
Well, he owns the building.
I'll tell you,
Right.
I tried to pass a mural ordinance or get a mural ordinance going so we could regulate murals that came in, and that got shot down. I do think that this smoke shop does prompt me to think that we might need a sign ordinance for signage on Artesia Boulevard, because big red block letters, they're permanent sign. There's
What would-
It's a permanent sign.
What would
Oh, yeah,
happen
it's
if
permanent.
Oh, I haven't seen that one yet.
What would happen if the Manhattan Smoke Shop sign went up on PCH in Riviera Village? What would happen?
It would never, it would go. in the
Councilmember
first place.
Niederheim would be all over that like a bad dream. It would never happen.
That's the business district.
Yeah, the bid has there are little different regulatory activities there, but I can tell you, we have some, PCH has some storefront